So great, I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't nobody here just the same. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes?
Good night and welcome to yet another episode of This Just In. I'm going to call tonight's episode the NBA Prediction Edition because we're going to get all deep heavy in the NBA as we look ahead to the coming season. I'm Marsha Boyce, and with me, of course, Justin Marvel and Neil Hoy. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening,
Good night,
Marsha. Before we get into the predictions, I want to say something. I've been very critical or judgmental of certain leagues, but the NBA definitely is not one of them. When I saw what I can only call as real COVID-19 protocols being handed down this week or last week by Commissioner Adam Silver, I can only clap. He would have said, the players, coaching staff, members of teams cannot go into bars, cannot go into restaurants, and you can only have or be in gatherings of no more than 15 people. And that is what I was calling for, particular leagues I will not name or not mention by name, but that is what you call a protocol or safety and health protocols going forward to ensure that your league is playing. It's one thing to say that we want the money from this sport. We need sports playing. We need people watching sports. We need people employed. But you have to do things to ensure that these things happen safely. And the NBA and these protocols, once again, we saw the bubble scenario in Orlando, Florida. Of course, they couldn't repeat that. But to come back here and make it mandatory that players, coaches, members of teams cannot be going in bars, cannot be going in restaurants, can't be having what we in the Caribbean would call lines of more than 15 people. I can only applaud Adam Silver and this initiative.
Yep.
Well, guys,
Say it in the best.
as we look ahead then to the start of the NBA season, the preseason games are just about to point upon us. Neil, I'm going to start with you. What has been the biggest storyline for you so far heading into the season?
I think to start what Justin was talking about, the protocols and how the season will play. I mean, yes, we've seen a lot of player movement. We've seen John Wall, they switch teams. We can talk about that later. I know we talked about, we also had the drafting of some young players, some young exciting players. We've seen some, rumors and talk about player movements and everything like that. Free agency has been quick, but it has been very exciting because it's been so quick. Apart from that, though, I think the biggest story is how the NBA is dealing with the ongoing pandemic. As Justin said, they can't go into the biosecurity environment in Orlando. So now teams are going to have to play in their arenas. And like we've seen, Toronto is going to play in Tampa. Certain adjustments are going to be made in terms of how player movements happen after they leave practice facilities and games. So I think that is the biggest story right now in terms of how the season is going to go forward in such uncertain times amidst the global pandemic. To echo Justin's statements, I do agree that the NBA is doing a fantastic job of meeting obvious standards in terms of having games played and making money versus player safety and team and staff safety. Yes, we talk about the owners and about how greedy they are or whatever, and money has to be made. But the truth of the matter is there are a lot of livelihood, a lot of people depending on these leagues and these sports to go on, not only players, but obviously like ancillary staff, training staff, arena staff, stuff like that. So it's very interesting to see that the NBA they're obviously trying to make the owners happy, make the governors happy of the NBA, as well as the players and as well as the arena staff and everything like that. So it's just going to be very interesting to see how this goes forward throughout the year. Some teams may have fans, some teams definitely will not have fans, but it's going to be interesting to see how the whole dynamic shifts with the NBA and Adam Silver being the dynamic and charismatic commissioner that he is for this.
And Justin, what about you? You know, what is the major storyline heading into this new season?
Well, obviously, there's nothing going to be more important than what Neil just mentioned with how the NBA deals with the pandemic. So, right behind that, if that is 1A or one by itself, then right behind that for me is the future of none other than reigning two-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo. And the reason why I call that so big is because we're going to find out not too long from now, because I think the deadline for him to sign his Supermax extension is fast upon us. I think that's December 21st. And if Giannis does not sign that, then in my mind, I can't see him returning to Milwaukee after this season is done, because the reality is he's going to be coming back for less money in free agency. Like, he can't make any more than what he can sign with this Supermax extension. And I don't see why a player would turn down more money or turn down more money to come back to the very same place. Like, we can understand if you're leaving, but why would I turn down more money to come back to the same place for less money? That doesn't make any sense. So the Bucks are on the clock as of December 21st, depending on what Giannis does with his pen. And the next thing I want to see is, in that same scenario, is if Giannis does not sign, what do the Bucks do? Because Giannis did say that he will never demand a trade. And then what do you do as a small market team? Like, Giannis is indeed what you would call a once in a generation type player. I mean, a two-time MVP and also reigning defensive player of the year. Small market teams only look into those type of players via the draft. Do you allow, as a small market team like Milwaukee, who doesn't attract free agents, do you allow that guy to leave for nothing? Or do you what do you do? Like, are you going to still chase for a championship this year and don't trade him and let him leave in the offseason for nothing? Or are you going to hope that you can win, or do you then trade him to a contender? Let us say, for argument's sake, I think someone like Golden State has some assets that they would want to give up to get him in. I don't think it's any secret that they've been after him. Do you then look to start over and see what you can get from him and try to keep your timeline moving forward? It'll be interesting, because in my estimation, I don't see Giannis staying once he doesn't put pen to paper on December 21st.
Neil, do you agree with him though? Do you think, if they don't get that signature, that's it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough call. I mean, if Giannis decides that he is skipping town, and he doesn't get that, sorry, don't let me say that. Let me say, if he does not sign this year, I would be sweating if I were the Bucks front office, because that can mean, it can mean that Giannis is, testing the waters to see what he can get, or he just is quite flat down with that, and he's looking to move on from the Bucks. And the contingency plan after that, because they're such a small market, because they're a franchise that even as a small market, they're not at the top of anyone's list to go and play. No one wants to go. I was just going to make a joke that nobody wants to go to Wisconsin, but Justin, boy.
Yes,
but anyhow, yeah. But yeah, I mean, nobody wants to go to Wisconsin to play. So it's just interesting to see what the Bucks will do. It's going to be a very tough uphill battle for them if Giannis does leave. Obviously, he doesn't sign. But apart from that, though, I think that if we are talking about, Justin did mention that after the pandemic and how the season will go on for the NBA, that Giannis is the biggest story. I actually disagree. I think the biggest story after that would be James Harden and his move. We are seeing James Harden. We know how the front office, he and the front office have pretty much, unfriended each other on social media and everything like that. It is no secret that James Harden wants to move on from the Rockets. I I don't even know if to call it an 8-year experiment, but that time has passed. The Rockets are going away from small ball. They've gotten rid of the general manager. They've gotten rid of the coach. They've gotten rid of one of the star players. They're kind of changing up the dynamic of the. Interesting to see where James Harden goes and to see if the Rockets would actually, give in to his demands to trade him, or just say, you know what, brother, you under contract, so you gotta stick it out here and see what happens. I think that's a franchise that if James Harden leaves, they're also too in a bit of problems, because I don't know what they're gonna do in terms of players coming there and everything like that. Because even though the Rockets are a successful franchise and they do have a lot of success under their belt over the last few seasons, over the last few decades, I don't think people are clamoring to go and play in Houston. I think that if James Harden leaves, at this point, I would say when James Harden leaves,
when James Harden leaves.
When James Harden leaves, I think the Rockets are going to be in a real spot of bother in trying to get a team that is worthy of playing on the team. Because right now they do have, you can see they're trying to go back big with players like Tyson Chandler, even though he's in his twilight years, and some other players. They're trying to get big. They're trying to get younger. But the problem is that they don't have any. It's a team. I wouldn't even see a team full of role players. I would say it's a team full of bench warmers. So, well, obviously outside players like PJ Tucker and DeMar Carroll and
Eric Gordon.
And Eric Gordon. So
we're gonna touch Rockets a bit, in a moment. But I just want to jump in here because I have a question for Justin. Well, really, but I'm going to start with Justin. Now, I love sports because of the see lots of surprises. Any given day, it could be anybody's game. If we're being, So for Justin, then, are there any major surprises that you're looking forward to this season, or things that you think, this might actually happen?
Yes, I'm glad that you cut in right at that moment, because I do expect, and I don't think this part is a surprise, I do expect James Harden to be traded to the Brooklyn Nets. They can give, you're going to have, Neil said that right now, no one wants to go to Houston. That's probably correct. And they're going to have to get people via trade. And what the Brooklyn Nets can provide is a package centered around rising star, in my opinion, Karis LeVert. You'll get Spencer Dinwiddie, Jared Allen, and I think they're offering about 4 first-round picks, or 4 picks altogether. And I don't see Houston eventually turning that down. There's been a lot of posturing, as you've heard me say on multiple shows, but just like they did with Westbrook, they eventually had to trade him. And as we know, this star-driven league, and the moment that stars say that they want out, they get traded. Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis come to mind. But the surprise is going to be that even with the Brooklyn Nets loaded with star power, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden this season, I do think James Harden will be traded before the start of the actual season. They're not going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. And that is going to shock a lot of people, but it's not going to shock me.
Not going to shock me either.
Talent, those 3 players, you can argue that all 3 players are top 10 players. I wouldn't. But you can argue that all 3 players are top 10 players in the NBA. The problem is, theoretically, it should fit. But reality, basketball-wise, as Neil always likes to say, there's only one basketball on the court. And it doesn't fit, for the primary reason that none of them are true playmakers. They're all, in essence, they're all isolation scorers. All 3 very, very skilled, and all 3 isolation scorers who don't really like to move the ball a lot. And they're all 3 for their ability to shoot the ball, and they're decent spot-up shooters. To Kevin Durant, who's an exceptional spot-up shooter. They're poor off the basketball. James Harden obviously being the worst we've seen in Houston. He has basically sabotaged Houston's offense when he's not on the basketball. He doesn't even spot up on the arc, nor does he cut to the ring. Kyrie Irving, for all the years he's played with LeBron James, has never really been a catch-and-shoot player, has never spotted up, doesn't really cut. Kevin Durant, maybe, but Kevin Durant is at his best. In today's NBA, we've seen the ball has to move, and stars have to sacrifice if they're playing with each other for the ball. You have one of your stars has to be a playmaker. We've seen that with LeBron James. We've seen that with Golden State. I mean, the ball move no one really holds on to the ball long in Golden State. The ball moves very quickly, and these teams that you saw in San Antonio, the ball moves. In today's NBA, this 3 isolation scores, just taking turns at scoring. That's not going to win. So that's my big surprise. I think that even with that big trio, I would expect the Milwaukee Bucks, Marsh's Boston Celtics, or the Miami Heat, defending Eastern Conference champions, one to make the Eastern Conference Finals ahead of Brooklyn Nets.
And Neil, what about you? Any surprises this season?
Well, yes, I do have some surprises, but really quickly to Justin's point, I think, Justin, you also forgot to mention that I think the reason why they're not going to make the Eastern Conference Final is because they're going to have to give up too many pieces, too much of their bench, too much of their role players for that James Harden trade if he were to go over there. So to me, yes, there's the problem with the three of them, but there's also the problem of having a capable bench to help you and to propel you to that. Surprises. I actually think that there are two surprises that two things that I actually am very interested to see here, right? On a very personal level, I'm interested to see how the Charlotte Hornets perform out east. Obviously they have Gordon Hayward. They just got LaMelo Ball. And that is going to be a very interesting thing to see because their team is starting to kind of coalesce now. And it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're going to win more games. I don't think they're going to make playoffs. But the real surprise for me is the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks have very quietly put together themselves a very young, dynamic, and experienced team. Solomon Hill being the oldest at, I think he's 29. You have Trae Young on that team. You have the youngster that was just drafted. He's some African name, I can't remember, but he is a very capable and nice big. What's his name? I want to pronounce his name at least once.
I tried it once and that's left at once. I called him Big Man for USC. Congo. Yeah, the man for him. But anyhow, on this team you have Tony Snell and Solomon Hill being your oldest players. You have Bogdanovich, DeAndre Hunter, Danilo Gallinari. You have a backup Rajon Rondo. So you have a mixture of young players with veteran leadership. You have a mixture of small ball, and you also have half court play. Right? I think my only question would be how they look on defense. But I think this team, and Justin and I, we talked about this off camera, but I do think that this team here can make the playoffs in the East. I think that's going to be a surprise for me. The other surprise is more so of a particular player. I am actually, I think that the surprise, seeing how the Golden State Warriors kind of bounce back. I think they're going to have a really good season. I don't think that they're going to be obviously in that top echelon of the West simply because they're missing Klay Thompson, but I think they're going to be very dynamic and stuff. But if I were to say surprises right now, is the Atlanta Hawks and to a lesser extent the Charlotte Hornets to see how dynamic that player is. Also to the third ball brother, not third.
Come out. The finger has come right out.
Also, too, I think a lesser surprise is not going to be on anybody's radar. Nobody's really checking, but I am very, very excited and interested to see LiAngelo Ball be in the league. He is the middle child of the Ball brothers. He's in the league. He's playing with Detroit. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how everybody talks about Lonzo. Everybody talks about LaMelo. It's going to be interesting to see how LiAngelo Ball can play in this league. We know he's 6'5". We know he can shoot. He posts up. He was a bully in high school and in Lithuania Lithuania. But it's just going to be interesting to see how he plays. And I actually am very excited for the smaller stories and the younger talent in the NBA this year.
I want to ask you, Marsha, who let LeVar Ball onto this show? Because it could only be LeVar Ball that's here telling me to look out for LiAngelo Ball. Like that man.
I know, Justin, don't be
surprised. I'm going to be surprised, right, if LiAngelo Ball gets some single minute in the NBA this season. That is That is a guarantee. And I'm not talking about.
You said a single minute. That's what
A
you said. He's
single
not going
minute.
to get a single minute. I think that's a bit much.
LiAngelo Ball, right? Let me tell you, because Neil is again here hyping him up like he's his father. So that's what he wanted to know.
1 minute in an entire
So I wanted to know.
season.
I wanted to know if it was the VAR ball on this show, hyping up his ball boys. Here's the reality, Marshall boys. What Neil didn't tell you is that LiAngelo Ball is as tall as Neil, 6'5" at very best. LiAngelo Ball is not athletic. LiAngelo Ball is not fast. LiAngelo Ball is not agile, to say the least. LiAngelo Ball's strength is posting up. And at 6'5", who are you going to post up in the NBA? Who are you going to mark? He's not fast enough to guard wings. He's going to have to mark guards. You can't mark threes because you're just too small and too short. There is no, our good friend Larry, and he always tells me, you are who you can guard. And right now, LiAngelo Ball cannot guard anyone in the NBA. LiAngelo Ball get off his shot in the NBA. I do not see Marshall Boyce and Neil Hoyt. Sorry, I do not see Marshall Boyce and LeVar Ball. I do not see LiAngelo playing a single minute in Detroit. And Detroit is a very, very bad team. And
I was just about to say, I think that because he is in Detroit, he is going to get those minutes. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see if he falls or if he plays. This team, I'm looking at this team right now, right? And this team is a who's who of who? They got Blake Griffin, they got Derrick Rose, who's past his prime. They got who? Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, Van Exel. Come on, Justin, you might get minutes on this team. However, I just think that it would be interesting to watch. That is one of these storylines. It's not a top storyline, but it's something that I'm going to be looking forward to. I'm going to peep into a Detroit game to see if he plays and how he plays. That's just me personally.
You must think this is the Budge Boy baseliners, but we'll go on to the next segment.
Oh dear.
So guys, just let us know in the comments if you agree with Justin. Will LiAngelo Ball get less than a minute on court in an entire NBA season? Let us know if you agree with Justin. If he's talking foolishness, I might lean on the side of he's talking foolishness, because a minute, like one single minute, and what is a strange season? Of course, he will get a minute, Justin, at the very least.
Boy, a lot of blows can be happening in Detroit. A lot of blows.
You don't know how bad this boy is. There's a reason he went undrafted. There's a reason why he had to go through G League. And I mean, this is not to knock G League.
Hold on, and there's also a reason why he's in the league.
He's there now. Now, how many people don't even make it that far?
Agreed. And how many people go in the league and don't play? Well, LiAngelo will be one.
Right,
listen, even active, that boy will touch the court, guaranteed. Because whenever he does play, that is additional eyes. Even if just for the first 2 games, that will guarantee additional eyes and sports center coverage.
We're talking about bad Detroit franchise, Marshall. I'm not talking about the bad boy Pistons or the Ben Wallace Pistons. I'm talking about this Detroit Pistons team.
There will be a night, especially I haven't seen the entire season, but let there be a night where possibly all 3 are on the court at the same time. If I am Detroit, he will play that night, because you will force yourself into the media coverage.
If I'm doing Casey, I'm not playing him though, because I want to win games. I'm just saying.
But that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of wins they coming down there. Whether you want to play him or not.
Yeah, Dwayne Casey coaching for his future though, so no, LiAngelo Ball playing.
We'll add this to the watch list of things for the 2020-21 NBA season, because we need to keep track of if Justin actually, knows what he's talking about or not. But guys, now going into some of the individual players. Remember, this is our prediction edition. So, are there any players, or who's that player that you think will be traded during this season?
You want to go Neil first, or you want me?
Besides James Harden, James Harden. I think I would be shocked if come the middle of the season, James Harden is still playing in a Rockets uniform. It is a foregone conclusion that he's going to be traded. I can't think of any other player that's going to be traded. I know there have been rumblings and rumors of other players. I don't think Giannis is going to move. Yeah, James Harden for me. James Harden is the one that I think, and we talked about this before, right? If there's one player that's going to move, it's going to be James Harden. It's going to be interesting where he goes. All bets are pointing toward New York Brooklyn Nets. I don't think that's a good fit. Justin doesn't think it's a good fit. I think the entire universe don't think it's a good fit, except the people in Brooklyn.
Except for
James
Steve Nash, Sean Marks, and Mike D'Antoni. I think they're the only
as,
three that
as
probably think that.
exactly, but nah, I think that James Harden going there for the two reasons we talked about. I don't want to keep hammering it home, but James Harden is Kyrie Irving with less handles. You know, they're essentially the same player. They can beat the dots off the ball. They're good finishers. They can score points. However, they're the same type of player. One is bigger than the next, probably. You know, then the unfortunate thing is to get James Harden, you're gonna have to get rid of players like Spencer Dinwiddie, others, probably Jared Allen. You're gonna have to get rid of to get James Harden, meaning that you will actually lose a bit of defense. You will lose a bit of bench scoring. You will lose a bit of your credibility in your role players. So yeah, I think he's gonna move. Chances are he can go to Brooklyn. It'd be interesting if he goes to the 76ers.
That'd be
But
very interesting. And
yeah,
that
but
move makes more sense in terms of fit if you're trading swapping Ben Simmons, obviously.
well, obviously Ben Simmons would have to go. But yeah, so for me it's James Harden. I think he's the star right now. We can all watch to see if he's going to move. Well, when he's going to move, really.
Let me quickly piggyback off of Deal's point before I get to who's the star I think was going to move. I wouldn't be concerned for Brooklyn of losing the bench because we saw what happened when you lost basically all of your bench for Anthony Davis. Like, the star power was just good enough. My issue for me is fit. I get your concerns and they're legitimate concerns. For usually overrides, what bench players produce and whatever not, or collection of bench players. I don't be too concerned because look at your title winning team: LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and whatever else that was left. But I mean, your third best player in the playoffs was was probably either Contavious Caldwell Pope or Adrian Rajon Rondo. So if I'm Brooklyn, my concern wouldn't be what I'm giving up to get James Harden, more so than the fit. But to get to Marsh's question, no. I didn't think of can still call him that. That's going to be moved at some point before the trade deadline. If not at the trade deadline, it's going to be Victor Oladipo. And oddly enough, I think the team that's going to be headhunting for him most is none other than Neil's defending champions, the Los Angeles Lakers. The reason I think that you kind of saw that they were trying to get DeMar DeRozan, an odd fit to play next to LeBron, but you do need a scorer off the bench. Like you saw when LeBron James sits, some problems you have, and it's going to be, yes, it's a shortened regular season, but it's going to feel very long for Neil's Lakers because they're going to be only 70 days removed from the NBA Finals. So you're going to need as much rest for LeBron as possible entering year 18. And they know LeBron is a guy who really does take care of his body, but Father Time is unbeaten. And I just don't know how fresh LeBron James can really be after all these years of 10 years in the finals and a year 18 now. I don't know how fresh you can be with only 70 days rest. So Victor Oladipo, while also like DeMar DeRozan, not a great fit next to LeBron James in terms of he is not a great three-point shooter, not a great catch-and-shoot player like most wings you'd want playing next to LeBron James. He does fit a need for somebody lifting the scoring off your bench. And if the rumors are true, and I have to believe them, because I don't see why somebody would just say that Victor Oladipo is there in the middle of games asking to get out of Indiana. Indiana played it off nice and well and said that the two have come to an understanding. But I think that is nothing more than to make sure not to drive down his trade value. Because you don't hear about situations, no. So when Indiana is ready to move Victor Oladipo, they can drive up the stakes for him because teams don't think that he has to be moved right now. Unlike Houston, situation where they're being forced to trade James Harden. I think, and especially when you saw that Nate McMillan was fired, you kind of get the sense that Indiana is going to a more, spread the floor and shoot more threes offense, which is really not Victor Oladipo's game. So I think he's going to be the guy that's moved, particularly coming off those injuries, and he's not played for like a season and a half, almost 2 seasons. I don't know where their focus will be. Obviously, they have a starring in Sabonis, and they have young stud Miles Turner. T.J. Warren is starting to look like he's coming on as an NBA scorer, but none of those are. I honestly believe that Neil's Lakers will make a run at Victor Oladipo.
Well, it's interesting that you should mention the Lakers, and we had some movement away from the Lakers, and one of our comments is actually suggesting that Rondo will be traded this season, that he only went to Atlanta to get his dollars, and he'll be traded to another contender.
That could be a possibility. I mean, Rajon Rondo has been around. He's done it for so many years. I think at this point, for him, he's won in both conferences. Easily going to make the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. I think it's just one of these things where, he's literally. I think for him, he knows his value. He knows that he can turn up at any time in the playoffs. Bring out playoff Rondo, Justin. And I think that even though he goes to Atlanta and he's getting his money, eventually I think he may end up in a contender, maybe back in the East, to help bolster someone's bench, maybe end up in Miami. Miami would be a really good fit for him in terms of culture, in terms of coaching, in terms of the front office and the willingness to win. You have great players in Jimmy Butler. You have great young talent that you can mentor. You'll be a backup point or maybe even a third string point guard. But you would help to mentor. You would play big minutes in the playoffs. Yeah, I don't see why not. That is a possibility of him moving on from Atlanta.
I don't think so, Neil. And the reason why, as you mentioned, when you look at what Atlanta has done in the offseason, they picked up Bojan Bogdanovic and also Danilo Gallinari. That reeks of a team that is trying to get to playoffs right now. And if that is the case, then that means that you want somebody. And this does not mean that you believe in the playoff Rondo.
Just say, don't hate, just say. Do not hate.
It tells me that they
need
want
someone like playoff Rondo.
They need somebody like Rajon Rondo with the playoff experience to mentor Trae Young.
Rajon P. Rondo.
They want somebody like Rajon Rondo, whether it be to shepherd or basically mentor Trae Young, or to come off the bench and give them a lift of some sorts. So that moves. The move to get Rajon Rondo coupled with the pickup of Bojan Bogdanovic and Danilo Gallinari tells me that this team is looking to win now. And by win, I don't mean championships, but I mean get into the playoffs. So no, I don't think they would actually look to move on from Rondo. I believe that is a move looking to bolster whatever chances. And I think their chances are very strong to get in the playoffs. I, like Neil, do believe that that's a playoff team right this minute. Like, there's a reason why Milwaukee tried to trade away everything to get Bogdanovic. And Danilo Gallinari is a guy my Phoenix Suns were coveting at that 4 spot. So, yeah, like Rajon Rondo is there for them to make the playoffs.
Now, guys, I want to turn your attention to another big trade that we had recently. The news was dominated by that swap of sorts between Russell Westbrook and John Wall. Westbrook going to the Wizards and Wall going the other direction, going to the Rockets. Who came out better? Which side do you think got the better deal? Justin, starting with you.
Washington, and I don't even think it's even close. I don't think anyone wanted to trade here. Like, he traded one bad coach.
It's so funny, right? You hear us say Washington, isn't it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, you traded one extremely bad contract for almost similarly bad contract. So there are really no winners here. But the mere fact that John Wall has not played meaningful basketball since, I think, January 2019, coming off a ruptured Achilles tendon and I think an ACL tear. At least one of the bad contracts has been playing basketball. And if you want to be fair to Russell Westbrook, since when Houston traded Clint Capella to basically make Russell Westbrook their center, I think Russell Westbrook went on pretty much a tear, a binge of sorts. He played really well, and as much as he looked terrible against Neil's Lakers, there are two things in that. One, he was coming off a hamstring injury, and two, reality is Lakers are big, so yeah, he may have been Houston's small ball center, but yeah, Neil actually had real Dwight Howard and Jalen McGee.
Yeah, we bought real centers like that series.
Yeah, so they're gonna just wait for him at the ring and dare him to shoot. But yeah, Russell Westbrook, I expect, and with him going back to Washington with his old coach Scott Brooks, he's gonna have Bradley Beal, so he's not gonna be the man. It's gonna be Bradley Beal, Dave Bertans, a second-year player I like a lot, and Rui Hachimura. So Washington is going to return to playoffs, and they're going to get a good Westbrook because remember, Scott Brooks is a guy who knows how to deal with Westbrook's personality and has gotten the best of that point guard. So, Washington is not even close because you're taking on now, and I'm referring to Houston, you're taking on a bad contract for a player who's no longer good, and you don't even know if he can get back on the floor, what he will be when he plays again.
Well,
Houston
he says
Houston
he's
easily.
evolving to his all-star form with the Rockets.
Yes, because I've never heard that before.
That's his words, not mine.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard an old banged-up player say he's trying to. He will get back to his all-star form.
I think that's in their contract. I think it's in their contract to say. I think it's in their contract to say stuff like that.
Just saying. What about you, Neil, man?
Yeah, so winners, none. I don't think anybody won this. For the simple fact that you have, for all the reasons you mentioned, right? Russell Westbrook, as great as he is going to a team that outside of him and Bradley Beal, there's nothing else. Yes, you do have great role players, but really and truly, that team is exceptionally inexperienced. They're really, really small. And to have a lot of guards. They have Robin Lopez, who's old. They got Ian Himney. They got Wagner, who's a good player. But to me, that team is not a team that screams movers and shakers and winners in terms of having Russell Westbrook on that team, right? Bradley Beal is going to get his. Russell Westbrook is he's going to flourish. But as you said, Justin, bad contract and being the player that Westbrook is, I can actually see him in some situations being a hamper more so than a benefit. Because remember, John Wall didn't play, and they were in ninth last season. They finished ninth in the in the East, without John Wall. Take away some of those games, those close games that they would have won, simply because of him making some bad decisions and stuff like that. So, but on the flip side, the Houston Rockets, John Wall, I actually was surprised that he's playing basketball. I mean, he looked real good on social media and practicing and in scrimmages and in runs and stuff like that. He looks really good. He's training really hard. If James Harden were to stay, I can see Houston possibly being the winner if he stays healthy. But with him and his checkered history with his health and James Harden eventually looking to change the dress come the middle of next season, I just don't see Houston being a winner in any case for that in that situation. And then you couple the fact that James Harden and John Wall, when he was healthy, are essentially the same player. I mean, yes, John Wall can pass the ball and, he's very dynamic and slashing and stuff like that. But he is not the person you want to take over games. And he is, James Harden is going to be back to James Harden, watching James Harden beat the dots off the ball and try to put up a shot. So I don't think there are any winners here. I think both teams are in the middle of their transition from their previous model or their previous ideology that they have had in seasons before. So right now you're just seeing a transition. I would say check me back by trade deadline, and I can answer and tell you if the Wizards won. Right now, as it stands, I think the winner. I don't even know who the winner is. Maybe
John
I don't.
Wall. John Wall has said that Harden wants to play with him. So do you guys think, John Wall
Uno?
coming to the Rockets?
Monopoly?
Do you think that John Wall coming to the Rockets will have any impact on Harden's decision?
John Wall's a good partner in dominoes. Because that's
In
what
bridges, in bridge, in hearts, spades. Because remember he was right spades. He was playing spades in that. So spades, yeah.
Yeah, spades. Yeah. So yes,
and on the court. And on the court.
So James
will
Harden
that
wants to play
influence
with John Wall in spades. Yes. Yeah, got you.
But on the court,
listen,
will it influence
on the court,
Harden's
James Harden is
decision?
one.
Oh,
James Harden.
Oh, you're asking a serious question, Marsha. The answer is no.
Yes, I am asking a serious question.
No, also sorry, I thought it was a joke. No, and no. John Wall would not want me to stay. Like John Wall is not making me stay in Barbados. So I don't see how John Wall is the difference in keeping James Harden in Houston. Like he is as Neil rightfully mentioned, he is a worse Russell Westbrook. And James Harden wants out. So you played with Russell Westbrook and you want out. And John Wall is going to keep you in Houston. As I said, the Houston franchise is under no sort of delusion. They know exactly what they're doing. I've said this on multiple spaces here and our live last week. You brought in a first-year GM. You brought in a first-year head coach. You traded Russell Westbrook. You traded the guy, I keep forgetting. His name is not here right now. Who really played their small ball set, able to help you? But you've done all these things.
You mean not PJ Tucker. You mean oh dear. I know who you mean though.
Played for Minnesota, but when you made these moves, you are clearly saying you are rebuilding. So you're not looking Robert Covington. So you've got a first-year head coach. You got a first-year GM. You trade Russell Westbrook. You trade Robert Covington. You are trying to make me believe that this John Wall acquisition is to make, to keep James Harden. You're not fooling anyone. You're posturing, you're biding time. You're trying to drive up the asking price for James Harden, which will not work because teams are just going to wait and go. And the reality is, it is better for them right now to trade James Harden at this moment. So the answer, Marsha, is no. James Harden knows full well that John Wall is not being brought there to keep him, and he will not want to stay to play with a man with a ruptured Achilles and a torn ACL who has not played basketball over a year anyway.
Right. I agree. To echo his statement, I can just say my next statement in French. No.
And the internet drops Neil just for that.
Clearly, y'all are being a little bit ridiculous tonight. But guys, now let's move on to a topic that not necessarily one of my favorite topics because I'm not a fan of the modern era hiring and firing of coaches, willy-nilly. But as they say, it is easier to get rid of one man than 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players. So, which coach do you think will be the first to be fired this season? Justin, I'm going to start with you again. Oh, well, Neil seems to be ready. So Neil, go right ahead then.
Hold on. I really am not. So I've been struggling with this question all night, right? Because I think, especially when you've seen the amount of coaches that have changed within the last season, off season, everything like that, right? We saw Alvin Gentry. He's out at the Pelicans. We've seen D'Antoni. He's out for the Houston Rockets. There's so many coaches that have been fired. What's the guy named Brett Brown?
Brett Brown.
Right, yeah. So many coaches has shifted. Doc Rivers was out in the Clippers. I think who was needed to be fired was fired. But what would be interesting is, I would say teams like Malone and the Jazz.
Denver. Oh, Quinn Snyder in Jazz and Mike Malone.
Quinn Snyder, yes, and the Denver Nuggets. I think those are the two coaches that you'll be looking at if they underperform this year. All the other coaches, to me, I think when you look at some of the other smaller teams or teams that are not necessarily in playoff contention, I think that they're small markets. These are things I think that you have the coaches for like LA and for Miami. All those coaches are pretty good for, but maybe the Bucks. Maybe if the Bucks don't make the NBA Finals this season, you may see the end of Justin's guy. What's his name?
Mike Budenholzer.
Budenholzer, yeah. You might see the end of Budenholzer if they don't make the playoffs. Sorry, not the playoffs, the finals. But yeah, more than likely, I would say Quinn Snyder, Malone from Denver, or even Budenholzer for the Bucks. Those are coaches that I think the pressure is on to perform and to get to the next level.
For me, quite like Neil, it was a bit challenging, this question, because when you look at the teams with expectations, typically those are where coaches are fired from. I don't really see where that's going to come. Obviously, Frank Vogel just won a title with Neil's Lakers, so that's not going to happen.
Right.
I am not going to agree with Neil here because Quinn Snyder has made the playoffs, I think, every single year since Gordon Hayward has departed. And that is like, and the first year, that was a tremendous achievement considering that your best player was a rookie. Mike Malone
but hold on a minute, Justin. How far has Denver got? Not Denver, sorry. How far has Utah gotten since then?
Right,
yes, they've gone to the playoffs, but outside of that, other than the first round, second round, where have they gone?
Right, but as I said, it's expectations, and I don't think with the West is without a true superstar, I don't see the expectations on Utah being to get over second round, particularly when, again, Utah is not a major free agent destination. So, and the team is still considerably young, so I don't see that expectation being thrown on Quinn Snyder. Same with Mike Malone. You just got to Western Conference Finals, and your team is young and building together, and I think, he will be given a stretch with those players.
But suppose Denver gets out in the first round or second round, or suppose they get humiliating. Because remember, we've seen some movement in the West, and we know that some teams are going to be different come playoff time. Like, for example, the Warriors are going to be in the mix. So it is very possible that Denver can drop some seeds and possibly be out in the first, second round.
It could be, but I don't think that'll be held against Mike Malone too harshly because he has won a playoff series the year in front of that. And he got to last season, he got to the Western Conference Finals with an extremely young team. He wasn't expected to get past the Clippers, and he did that. So I don't think, not getting out the first or second round will be held against him. Then you look out east. The only real coach that's going to be under fire, you just mentioned, is Mike Budenholzer. And I think regarding the Giannis decision, I don't think much will be held against him there either, especially considering Giannis's tenure in Milwaukee. This has been the best, meaning the Mike Budenholzer era. This is the best that we've seen in Milwaukee. So I think that they're going to hold him in high regard. So of all the teams that are, have high expectations, Marshall's Boston Celtics, I think they're very high on Brad Stevens, and he is not underperformed at any point in time, in my estimation. We know Eric Spoelstra has titles under his belt, and he exceeded expectations. So teams with title aspirations, the Clippers just hired Ty Lue, so they're going to give him a run. Doc Rivers has now landed in Philadelphia, so he's going to get some time there. So the reality is, teams with expectations, they don't see moving on from their coaches. So I think the easiest one to go to is Luke Walton in Sacramento, because they have not been in the playoffs for quite a while. Made some gaffes in recent drafts. Most notably, you've missed Luka Doncic. And you have a rising star in De'Aaron Fox that you just paid a rookie max extension to. You just paid a lot of money. And you've drafted his backcourt partner in crime for years to come in Tyrese Halliburton. So I think management is going to expect, at least a playoff appearance. The problem is that the two LA teams, Denver and Utah, we just mentioned. Dallas, we're going to get to probably just shortly, but Dallas, you mentioned Golden State and the return of Steph Curry. I do not see, I didn't even call Portland. I don't see a scenario where Sacramento gets in the playoffs, and I think that that'll be it for Luke Walton, who, in my estimation, has always been an overrated coach because he got a lot of, he was held in high regard for the situation that presented itself in Golden State. When in reality, we know that you and I could coach that team and they'd be what they are. So, yeah, I don't see Luke Walton, especially when Sacramento doesn't make the playoffs. I don't see Luke Walton surviving another year out there in Sato.
All right, interesting, guys. Now, as we continue on our prediction journey in this prediction edition, I'm going to give you some categories, the big categories that everybody likes to discuss and usually dominate the headlines when these awards are named. So we're going to spend some time delving into these areas, and we have some time for discussion. So first up, the MVP award. You can tell me your name and why you've chosen that person.
Oh, this is easy, Marsha. You can guarantee this like Charles Barkley. Put down the name. Unless Kristaps Porzingis is injured this year, which seems to be a likelihood almost every year, Luka Doncic is
I was
going
gonna
to
say the
win.
same thing.
Yes, because you are always got to come down to me, Neil. Luka Doncic is issuing for me to win the MVP. Last season, I thought he should have been third in MVP voting, ended up fourth. Second year player, Marsha, then averaged 29, 9, and 9 and took the Los Angeles Clippers to 6 games. 6 games without the aforementioned and always injured Kristaps Porzingis. If Kristaps Porzingis finds a way to stay on the court, we are looking at a team that is going to, and you heard this here first, who is going to get a top 4 seed and have home court advantage for the first round in the playoffs in the West next year. This is a kid who I expect at some point within the next 2-3 years to become the best player in the NBA whenever LeBron James decides to give up that mantle. Like, I don't know what else I can say about Luka Doncic. I can throw out the accolades and things, but this boy is so good. As a 20-year-old, we saw him in the playoffs push the Clippers to 6 games, and I mean they were tied at 2-2 at one point in time. Oh, I remember the accolade they wanted to say. This is a kid in his second year, Marsh, at 20 years old, led the league's best offense. And I'm not talking about best in 2020 season. I'm talking about historically the greatest offense that we've ever seen as a 20-year-old sophomore. Marsha, there's no shot of a doubt in my estimation. Luka Doncic, you can write it down right in front of you right now. Pencil him in as the 2020-2021 MVP.
So Neil, I guess you agree.
Yeah, this is one time that I can agree that you can write it down, as Justin said. I don't know about the guaranteed like Charles Barkley, but I do agree that Luka Doncic will be MVP simply because he is phenomenal at his age. He is only getting better, if you can imagine, getting better from 29, 9, and 9 up from his rookie year of, I think, 28, 8, and 8 or something like that. Like, he is getting better every season. He is a scary player in terms of just how he thinks the game and how he can score at will and how he can find players and engage other players. As Justin said, if Porzingis can stay healthy, they're going to be a top 4 team in the West, and Luka Doncic will become MVP in his third year in the NBA.
Well, you two are agreeing, but guys, you don't have to agree with them. So let us know in the comments who you think will be the shoo-in, at least at this stage, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Which player for you is the shoo-in to take the NBA's MVP title? Just let us know in the comments. Now, Justin, coming back at you again. Defensive player of the year.
Anthony Davis.
Jeez,
LeBron James.
Man, just no. Come on, no. Come on, you're looking at my cheat sheet.
LeBron James is going to have to take a lot of rest this season. We've mentioned that earlier in the show. It's 18th season and only getting about 70 days rest. So I don't see how LeBron James plays from the get-go. So which means a lot more from Anthony Davis on both ends of the floor. And because of without LeBron James, the talent on Neil's Lakers is really almost nil. So it's going to require a Herculean effort at both ends of the floor, and I think you're going to see the best of Anthony Davis this season. He will probably be like a runner-up or a third in the MVP voting, and a lot of that will have to do with how great he is going to be defensively, particularly because Neil has lost a lot of what his defensive identity was last season in terms of Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee, that they did a lot of rim protection. Now that will be left on Anthony Davis's shoulders, and I think he's going to be up to the task. You can argue that Anthony Davis should have won Defensive Player of the Year last year, but I think without a shadow of a doubt, what you're going to see now because of what is left back in the Lakers and what is going to be asked of Anthony Davis, that, yeah, that's going to be your Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I completely agree. Anthony Davis, he was going to be my alternate pick for MVP if Luka wasn't so good. But for Defensive Player of the Year, Justin hit the nail right on the head. I mean, because we've lost. When I say we, I mean the Lakers. We've lost rim protectors in Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. And Anthony Davis, even when they were on the team, was defending the rim really well when he was in the game. He was blocking shots. He was, forcing players to certain things. He was guarding players. He was doing really well, especially against players like Nikola Jokic in one series, and then the Clippers, not Clippers. Sorry, the name just slipped out of my mind in Houston. Because he played really well against that small ball. Granted, it was small ball, but he blocked a lot of players in Houston. My goodness. So it's just interesting to see how he's going to play. I think his career has been revitalized when he moved to Los Angeles. He's got a taste for winning and whatever it takes to be a champion. I think because he is so young, he is so gifted and so talented on both ends of the floor. I think he's going to recommit himself and double down and be up to the task, especially now that we don't have rim protectors as we did last season. I think he's going to step up as Defensive Player of the Year.
Now, this one might be a little bit harder, but going again with you, Justin, first, or Neil, you want to go first this time since he's stealing all of your picks?
Oh, go ahead. No, I want to go first.
Okay, cool. So then this one might be a little bit more difficult, but Rookie of the Year.
So Rookie of the Year for me is going to be LaMelo Ball. The reason why I say that is because you look at Anthony Edwards, he's on the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are not going to be, I don't think they're going to be that much better with him on the court. That team is Karl Anthony Towns' team, and they have D'Angelo Russell there as well. So I don't think that he's gonna make an impact, yes, but I don't think it's going to be as phenomenal as the situation is for LaMelo Ball. At number two is who? Number two is Wiseman. Yeah, James Wiseman.
James Wiseman.
Yeah, but he's playing with Golden State, and Golden State we know of, shoot, you're playing behind anybody that is, part of those championships. And then you got Kelly Oubre, you have Andrew Wiggins, you still got not Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green. So your impact is going to be minimal there. D'Angelo Ball is in the right situation in Charlotte. They have Gordon Hayward who plays off the ball. He is a dynamic passer. He grew a lot in the last few years, so he's now like 6'8". He's very long. Not as athletic, but he can finish at the ring and get to the ring. He could pull long threes. I think he's going to be dynamic for the Charlotte Hornets. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs in the previous few seasons. So Rookie of the Year for me is going to be LaMelo Ball. Also behind him is our African guy from USC.
He's not going to get enough minutes behind John Collins and Clint Capella as well as Danilo Gallinari for me to put him in the race. I don't think he's going to get enough minutes.
I still think he's going to be dynamic enough, but the point is the head and shoulders winner of the Rookie of the Year for me is going to be LaMelo Ball.
You mean LaMelo Ball?
Why say LaMelo? So I can't keep track, but you know who I mean. LaMelo Ball.
Unfortunately, Marsh, is a very boring segment of the show so far because I do agree for the exact same reasons Neil said. LaMelo, he's going to be in a perfect situation. He's a point guard. The ball's going to be in his hands at all times. He's going to start and probably finish things. The best player on Charlotte is indeed Gordon Hayward, but as Neil correctly said, he's kind of an off-ball player, even though he is a good passer. But Yeah, the situation is right. He's going to have the ball in his hands. He's already an elite playmaker. Guy is going to jack a lot of shots and get to the rim. So his numbers are going to be there. When you look at number one overall pick, Anthony Edwards, he's on the team with two score-first players in Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, as Neil correctly mentioned. James Wiseman is not a score-first per se, and he's going to be on a veteran-laden team, as Neil mentioned, with Steph Curry, Draymond Green. So sorry, very sorry. Still Andrew Wiggins, still Kelly Oubre. So there are not a lot of shots to go around. He's going to protect the rim. He's going to rebound. But that won't be enough to keep up with LaMelo Ball's numbers. If there's anybody that is going to rival him, in my opinion, I look out for Obi Toppin in New York. I mean, New York is just right full of bad young players. So he's going to get a lot of minutes and a lot of minutes early. He's going to be a highlight reel every night. You're going to see some sort of highlight dunk a la Zion. So I think early on the clock, he's going to get a lot of highlight plays, big dunks, big blocks, chase down blocks, that sort of stuff, rebounds. So I'd go LaMelo Ball, and if he's going to get any sort of competition, it's probably going to come from Obi Toppin in New York.
Agreed.
Okay, guys, and finally then, last category, just the name, no explanation, because this one, might be interesting. Coach of the year. One name.
Coach of the year. One name. Sure. I don't know why Eric Spoelstra. Well, I know why, but Eric Spoelstra.
Justin.
For me, for what I mentioned earlier with the thing winning the MVP, it's going to be Rick Carlisle. They'll get a top 4 seed in the West. Going to shepherd another historic offense when Luka wins the MVP. And just by association, it's going to be Rick Carlisle, and Lloyd Pierce will get some votes when Atlanta gets into playoffs.
Oh, we got explanation. We were told explanation.
One name. Clearly, he doesn't listen. Clearly.
I know.
But guys, let us know what you think in the comments then. Who's your MVP? Who's your defensive player of the year? Who do you have for rookie of the year? And of course, coach of the year. But that's it for this Just in the NBA prediction edition. Be sure to join us again next week. But before you do that, you need to like this video. You've watched it right away to the end. Like this video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our episodes. You can also join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The discussions all continue there. And of course, on Thursday nights, we have the Mailbag Show on Instagram as well, so you don't want to miss it. So that's it for us from us here tonight. I'm Marsha Boyce.
I am Justin Marvel.
I am Neil Hoyt.
And we are saying good night.
Good night.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Johnny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, ain't nobody here against me. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world. I still got the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.